Hey everybody! I thought I'd make a video to talk about my first storytelling attempt, the Yvelda video series. It's been mostly fun to do. It was way more time consuming than I expected. And I know that it's far from perfect. I ended up with a lot more videos than I thought it would take to get through the story. And I think it's been over a year maybe of doing it. So yeah, just a lot more time than I expected. I think I got better as I went, but I know I still have a long way to go. And I know that this series is not the kind of thing that's going to appeal to most people. But maybe, just maybe, there's a niche somewhere out there in the world for cheesy Skyrim role-playing. So my inspiration for starting it all came from some other Skyrim role-playing series that I'd read, mostly on Reddit, and from watching a few on YouTube. Gopher is my favorite. He has such a quick wit. He's just such a great role player. I aspire to be even a fraction as good as him someday. And I also love Grandma Shirley, and I've been inspired by her Skyrim storytelling as well. And I have links to both of their channels below, so go check them out. Anyway, I was hungry for more role-playing stories, and I was frustrated that so many that I'd found, at least the written ones, were never finished. You'd start to learn about the character and get into the character and be interested in what was going to happen, and then there would just never be any more posts. So finally occurred to me that I could write one myself, even though I'm not a writer, neither by profession nor hobby. But I first started out by having the character that I was playing at the time, who was a young woman named Kandriel, keep a journal as she adventured across Skyrim. And I thought that I would upload her journal entries somewhere to tell her story, but I couldn't decide where. And then my daughter approached me about recording a Skyrim playthrough herself and posting it on YouTube, and that gave me a new idea. What if I recorded my gameplay and wrote the journal, and then I combined them both into videos? It sounded like something that was worth a try, so as I have a habit of doing, I jumped right in with both feet. And the first problem I ran into was choosing a character. Although Kandriel was my current character, I had not been recording any of her gameplay, and she was way too far into the story to start over. So the idea for Yvelda was born. Now, I'd actually already started Yvelda as a character as well, and I'd started her as a vampire using the alternate start Live Another Life mod. And I'd intended to take her through Dawnguard because despite the, I think maybe several thousand hours of playing Skyrim so far, I actually had not done that DLC. Now, when I started Yvelda, I didn't know that I was actually going to be telling her story or making videos or doing any of this. And I also didn't know that I'd be unable to do Dawnguard as a vampire. I wondered, I suspected, I thought I couldn't, but I decided I would try it anyway and see, because it would be a really funny twist for me as I played, if you were able to do that. Well, as you probably know, it turns out that you can't be in the Dawnguard if you're a vampire. But once I had started Yvelda's story and the videos, I couldn't just go back and change her. So I needed to make her story incorporate the vampirism and then the cure so that she could eventually join the Dawnguard. I decided to do that by making her slowly degenerate until she was rotten to the core, and then give her a redemption arc. To make it believable for the character, I had to give her thoughts and feelings and take her, at least I felt like this would be more believable, to take her on this emotional roller coaster through all of those events. And that is really hard to do without being cheesy, especially for someone who's never done anything like this before. So I tried, but I know it turned out silly. And, as you can probably tell from a couple of the videos, I got myself all verklempt when I was reading some of the script I had wrote. So take my cheesy amateur attempt for what it is. I still think it would have been a lot worse to just jump through the events without any time or reaction associated with them. I think that would have felt very weird for the story if she just was like, oh, I can't be a vampire, so poof, I'm cured, now off I go into Dawnguard. I think that would have felt very strange to me. All right, since I'd already started the game with Yvelda, but I hadn't been recording any of it, I had to replay the beginning of her story based on what I'd written in her journal. Now, let me say that Skyrim is dynamic enough that it's actually really hard to make the same things happen twice. So if you notice inconsistencies, especially in the first 30 chapters, that's probably the reason why. It's because I wrote in her journal the events that happened when I played through the game the first time. And then when I tried to recreate those events when I was actually recording, I was not always able to make it sound quite like I had written it up in the journal. I didn't really want to change the journal, though, because that's the story I had written. Now, as for the story itself, well, it kind of took on a life of its own. I never intended it to be as long and as drawn out as it ended up. And I never intended for some of the strange things to happen that happened, but I don't fabricate my characters with full in-game stories ahead of time. What I do when I roleplay is to imagine their backstory, and then I have a vision of sort of what quest lines I think are consistent with what their character would choose to do. But as for the journey itself, I like to just incorporate what happens in the game and then use that to evolve the characters. I have them react to things in a way that is hopefully consistent with their personality, and then let their own unique story unfold. I have, as I said in the beginning, mostly enjoyed my own journey of making this series. It has been hard. If anyone has aspirations to do this, I would say absolutely jump in and do it. But it's hard. It's taken a lot of time. And I'm one of those people who I can't like chew gum and walk at the same time, right? So I have a really hard time voicing over my gameplay while I'm playing. So I actually play the game and then I do all the voiceovers later. But that takes an incredible amount of time because I then have to re-watch that gameplay over and over several times during that process. So for me, it has taken a lot of time. And I will admit that there were a number of times when I felt that it was all just so stupid and so silly and nobody's watching it and nobody cares and I should just stop. But I'm a very determined person, and I just couldn't get out of my head this notion that how upset I had been for every story I had started, which never had an ending, that I was just determined to finish. Because if there was anybody who cared about Yvelda's story, I felt like I owed it to them to give them a complete story all the way to the end, cheesy as it is. So even though I don't love every single episode I've made, I know there are mistakes, and I know there are problems. I know I have a lot to learn, but I did learn a lot while I was doing it. And I think I decided by the end that I'm happy with the overall style. I like the notion of having sort of a journal and you get to hear the character's thoughts, and to have that sort of overlaid with the gameplay. I actually like that, and I think if I make more role plays, I will probably continue in the same vein, even though I know that might not actually appeal to most people. Although, as I say that, the next one I'm planning to do with my orc Khazarg, I probably will not do that because I think I'm going to use that series to highlight a lot of the new mods that I have in my setup. So hers is probably not going to be so much of a role play and probably be a lot of out of character talk. But anyway, if the way I do my stories and my style are not your cup of tea, then I get it. You probably aren't even watching this or listening to this video then. But if you are still here and you have constructive suggestions for how I can make things better, then I would be grateful to hear them. I mean, I know some of the obvious things, right? I need to learn how to act. I need to learn how to script. I think my video editing is fairly decent, but again, it definitely got better with the sound over time. But yeah, suggestions that are meant to be helpful are greatly appreciated. On the flip side, though, if you happen to have listened this far along and all you want to do is hate on my channel and tell me how stupid you think everything is, then I would respectfully ask you to just keep your opinion to yourself because I'll probably delete your comments anyway. I know that my role-playing videos are cheesy. I don't really need anyone to point out that obvious fault. But I will just say that the only way to get better at something is to just keep doing it. And so that's what I've done and what I am hoping I can continue to do. And I hope that my content is just going to keep getting better over time. And so that's it for Yvelda and her story. I hope that if you've watched it, you enjoyed it. I hope that the story was somewhat compelling, even if the presentation needs some improvement. And as for what's next, well, you may have already seen that I have an orc story brewing with my Skyrim Special Edition Legacy of the Dragonborn Plus mod setup. And I'm also considering doing a series based on Kandriel's journals. And those would be done in an audiobook style where I just read the journals and then show some sketches from the places that she's been. And I've already decided, so don't worry, that I'm not going to use a silly accent for those. I can tell you that they're going to be cheesy enough even without that. So I'm not a writer, and I laugh at myself every time I read through her journal. So I thought it would be actually entertaining to make them into a series. Some of the things that I wrote, that I came up with and then wrote down are truly ridiculous. And I know that. But I hope that if I do this series that you'll find it at least somewhat as amusing as I do. So thanks for watching, or listening, I guess, in this case. And I'll hopefully see you all later with some more stories. And in the meantime, I just want everybody to remember that being different isn't a bad thing. You don't have to be perfect at something or even great at something to give it a try. If you have an interest and an aspiration, then I would say just get yourself in the game, have some fun, and see what can happen. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye!